guys and girls, it's Pete, Mindwiseman's channel, aka Maverick Outdoors, and today's Sunday the 9th of November 2014 and I'm up on a trek on Wayfarer's Walk, otherwise known, as I've mentioned many times before, by the popular cartoon film Watership Down. Oh, there's a cartoon rabbit. Okay, so I'm just out for a trek, sort of a leisurely trek for about 10k, 5 kilometres one way, 5 kilometres the other. I say you've been on it with me before, but just something a little bit different today, talk about a few things, a bit of walk and talk. If there's enough daylight, I'll show you some of the kit. Really basic, nothing rocket science, it's just basic things that work for me. For the period of time I'm going to be out, the conditions, the predicted weather, where I am, knowing the terrain, etc. And you've seen this gate and path many times before. And you've seen it open and close many times before, but I've come from way yonder over there. You've seen me start at that point before. When I was prepping for the trek up Brecon Beacons, this is where I normally come, just to sort of get ready for it, because I'm planning to get up there again about mid-December this year. The weather and the terrain is going to be maybe a little bit different. The weather as in a little bit more colder and inclement, albeit it can't get any worse wind-wise than it was last November, when I was lucky to get back with Mountain Coat Dave in one piece. But beyond this path I've got to get, hopefully when the sun sets, just on the horizon there'll be the sort of top half of it. That's where I'll be in the main location that I've got to get to, sort of way over there. So I'm not going to include too much of the terrain. I want to get on the move. With the daylight hopefully I've got left, it's coming up to about 25 past 4. And by 5 o'clock, which has got just over half an hour, it's going to start to get really dusky. And you know, trying to film things and for what you're watching to make sense can be a little bit awkward to follow, especially if there's not enough light to actually see what's being described. But if not, I'll blast the torch on it, but just show you what I've got with me. You know, for me personally, my personal point of view with, you know, sort of fitness, we're not talking, you know, super fit, and we're talking fitness that's relevant to the physical activities that you do. So what's called in the trade, when I was a personal trainer, is called sport specific. So there might be particular exercise that replicate particular muscles that are specific for the activity. So obviously, you know, if you're playing golf, you wouldn't be training like a sprint runner, or of course a long distance runner, which is more aerobic rather than anaerobic, which is what a sprint runner and a strength training athlete would be. You know, you'd be training differently. So, but you have to get the right level if you're sort of trekking up different terrain. And we're talking about, you know, keeping your body conditioned, because, you know, with all the talk about survival and prepping with our kit, you know, making sure we've got the right bits and bobs, making sure your knife is sharp, making sure you've got, you know, the right weather. There's no such thing as bad weather, it's just the wrong clothing. So, you know, if you're talking about extreme survival or prepping as such, you know, we're talking about really SHTF, that's what I mean by extreme. Something that happens whereby you've got all your kit, but if you've got to do something on foot and rely on your physical abilities to do that, you know, have all the great kit, you know you can use it, but if there was an unexpected journey you had to take on foot and it was unpredictable, not only being unfit or not in condition would totally contribute to maybe not being able to do it or do it effectively, but also being unfit within a certain physical activity can phase you out because you feel you've lost control. So you can feel you've lost control because you haven't got the right bit of kit, so that can phase you out. But even more importantly, and you need to real extreme survival improvise with whatever you've got around you. Example, flint knapping. Obviously you don't need to be fit for that, but knowing that you've got a reasonable conditioning within your health and fitness just makes you feel more confident within yourself physically, which then totally sort of compounds positively your contribution towards being able to do what you've got to do with the kit you've got. So I hope that sort of makes sense. I've sort of mentioned it briefly before, but I thought I'd just add it a little bit because you know, it's relevant to what I do and what I'm doing now with this 10k track. But what I am actually going to enjoy doing is trekking back in the dark. So I'd sort of timed it with what I had things to do today, knowing I could get to my destination before it gets dark, hopefully just talk about a few things in reasonable light. And then, as I've mentioned before, I've got the solitude of walking back in the dark, and the weather's going to hold off, the temperature's going to drop, but I think the rain's going to hold off. But I've got my poncho and waterproof, so, but I'll tell you more about that in a little while when I get yonder up there. Okay, so you've seen that view before, that's where I've just come from. There's a caravan going to the Iron Age fort, about another 1.5 kilometres, just over a mile. For me personally, keeping conditioned, not just what I was referring to previously, you know, for your outdoor activities, and you know, we live in this thing, so we've got to look after it. And for me personally, if I didn't maintain this sort of conditioning just for normal day-to-day activity, I have to consider, because of a condition that I've got within my leg and my hip, so I don't go on about it, I don't talk about personal health issues, but just to sort of confirm and verify and give some sort of merit to why I do what I do. If I didn't consider my conditioning, which is a bit of cross-training in the gym, where I instruct some of my well-being classes. The early part of the year I've been using suspension straps, which are similar to like gymnast rings that hang vertically down, but they have at the end of them like saddle stirrup type handles, and you hold on to them, and depending what position you're in, you use your own body weight resistance to push or pull against or towards the straps whilst hanging. So you've got to use what's called your body core stability as well, which is within your spine, your back, and your overall muscular control to have a good posture, and basically for the rest of your spine to be in situ, so your body just functions as it should do rather than having a lazy posture, which then can have a diverse effect on other aspects of your, well, aspects of your body basically. the way to go. Right up to there. So you've seen it before, but a slightly different aspect to it. The ancient Iron Age fort. So, for me personally, I have to maintain, you know, a reasonable physical conditioning just for my daily activities, because if I didn't, the condition of my leg would play up, and then I might be totally immobilised and walking around with a bigger limp than I do sometimes. And I know I've included, you know, this sort of trek, this area, and the reasons behind it. You know, what works for me, I like to share my ideas, my experiences with like-minded people, and people that either agree or get something from it. Not everyone has to agree with what anyone does, far from it, but it's what works for the individual. Just like my kit that I've got with me, loads of people might say, oh, you need this, you should have had that. It's like, well, I could have brought the kitchen sink, could have bought a trolley, the pot-belly stove. I've got what's relevant for me, from my experiences, what I know about myself, my kit, and basically my point is, so I share my ideas with like-minded people, and I'm not out to prove a point to people that disagree with me or are not interested. So that's my philosophy on it, and that's my point of view. So it's not as if I've just gone out random one day to do a video and hoping stuff works. There's a lot of stuff I do which isn't privy to put on YouTube. I spend more time doing the things that are involved in Mindwiseman's channel, and whatever I can put up on my channel to share with everybody, subscribers, new people that might randomly come across my videos, then brilliant. I'm grateful for that. I always appreciate everybody's interest. If people can deem some sort of information, ideas from what I do, then do their own version. They don't have to do exactly what I do. But there are a few people out there who have a very blinkered vision, feel that, you know, things have to be done their way. I'm not saying that person has to do things my way. As I say, I'm not out to prove a point to people that are not on my wavelength or have the same interests. So that's my bit of YouTube politics for the rest of the year. As I say, sometimes things like that need to be said, and believe me, I'm being polite. So let's trek on with only a slight limp because my joints have warmed up. Okay guys and girls, I've found my little favourite spot that I normally come to up here, but I'll just quickly show you before it's starting to get dusky now. In the shade of this little mound on top of this Iron Age fort, it's a little bit darker, so you can just about see, but even better, I'll put the torch on it. So there you can see my 25 litre rucksack, and in the lid, just there, is my poncho, my wallet, a little waterproof cover that encapsulates and covers the rucksack if it rains, a fluorescent, they're bicycle armbands. I always take these with me. I've got 2 of them rolled up. They're good reflectors for focal points, keys. So that was in the lid. This was in one of the side pouches, just there. First aid kit, and I've recently got one of these, which is like an expandable bandage. I found this at the pound shop. It's absolutely fantastic. It's It's got no sort of residue on it, but it's a bit like the tape that you can put on, sort of sniper's tape that you wrap round. It's normally either drab colours, olive green, camouflage, and you wrap round any metallic reflective part of a rifle or firearm or something like that. And this is based on the same idea, but it's actually for first aid. So it's a great little bit of kit for first aid, because you can use it multiple times to support, you know, strain your ankle. It's sort of stretchy and it just binds, and you can just keep using it time and time again. So that's really good. In the other side pouch just here, where I'm just shining the torch, just have to bear with me with the torch, improvising. I had this box with fire kit, all makes sense, Vaseline, striking matches, cigarette lighter, all bits and pieces. If there was an emergency, I'm not expecting to light a fire, far from it, but you know, if push comes to shove, I just thought, well, if something happens, there's woods, tree there, which some of it's dying off because I see I've broken branches. That's been there for a couple of years, so that would easily strike a fire with the rest of all the tinder stuff. Leatherman sidekick and the pouch that this torch was in. Then in the main body of the rucksack, inside there, was my body warmer, sleeveless body warmer, which I've got wrapped up, takes up less space in a mail bag, reinforced sort of plastic mail bag that you receive through the post. I've used that a couple of times. Kneeling pad, sitting pad, litre of water, and an ammo flask, as they're known as, because they militarily fit in. They're made the size to actually go in an ammo pouch in the military. So I normally actually have my ½ litre, but I thought the time I'm going to be out, that's going to be enough. It's 350ml, nice hot sweet cup of tea, couple of biscuits just there, and sweat rag. Got a little item in here in that envelope, which I'll show you in a moment, which was sent to me to give to a family member, and then a big reflective sheet. There's my boot, so in ratio with the size of my boot, there's the emergency flag, which is twice the size of what you can see there, which is draped over my rucksack. So that's just for an emergency, but you know, if there was, I twisted my ankle, or you know, something happened, then I need to have the backup, and I've got the basic things that I know that would work for me, and they're relevant for everything that I'm just doing on this simple little trek. You know, I don't want to get paranoid, I don't want to get over the top. You know, I could have brought a blinking one-man tent, but the poncho would do, because that turns into a tarp as well. Okay, I don't know if you can see the back of my neck there, but there's some white material. Trying to do a cack-handy job here, just there. Okay, that goes all the way down my back to just above my belt level, around my waist, and it's my son, when he was a baby, we had nappies and disposables, and I've bleached a load. I've kept some of the material and the nappies, which are in good condition, bleached and washed them, and I found them more absorbent than this sort of microfiber towel, which I've sometimes used, you've seen me use before, to absorb the sweat down the back, because of course, you know, if your clothing gets wet and then you cool down, you've got that wet patch on your back, which makes you even cooler. And I know when I take this out from my back in a moment, it's going to be okay, because I'm going to be much drier. I'm going to put the body warmer on that's in that bag. But as I say, I folded it in half and stuck it sort of virtually in the centre width of my back. So yeah, it's done the job, and I find it more comfortable as well. It's much more absorbent than the more synthetic material, because it's 100% cotton, so that's just something I've used. And plus a keepsake as well, so I'm wearing also the memory of my son, who's now well into his 20s, when he's a little baby. Sentimentality there, totally random little comment, but there you go. And hanging off my waist on a carabiner, simple spring flexed carabiner, is my camera bag. Then in the side pouch pocket of these NBC trousers, really good solid pockets on them. When I got these trousers and the jacket, I mainly just wear the trousers because they're lightweight, plus they're really thermal, they're really good windbreakers. But so I turn them inside out to wash the charcoal out of them quite a few times, and which gets away the abrasion, because the material inside actually can be sort of like quite thick and rough. But once you've washed it, got the charcoal out, they're really comfy trousers, so I've used these loads of times. And in the other pocket, that was in there, is my buff. You can make into a hat or drape round, make a hood out of it. That was a lifesaver when I was coming down Brecon Beacons last year. Around my face was getting numb, and I wrapped it around the side of my face, and it saved the day. A pair of cycle gloves, which actually, I'll just quickly unwrap them. Got these cheap from a store which begins with the letter L, 4 letters in it. But see those little grey patches? They allow you to actually touch the screen of your camera, obviously when that's open. But they're only cheap, they're only £2.99, bicycle gloves. And I know for this sort of weather and what I'm doing, I don't need thermal gloves, that's fine. So all of that was in this side pocket. But now it's time to have a brew and some yummy bickies. Okay, so I've packed the stuff back into the rucksack. Just had a swig of the tea, put the lid on so it don't get cold, have 2 of those biscuits. But I just want to show you this sort of improvised knife that I was sent. So it's now just gone 5:30. The wind chill factor's kicked in just a little bit, but because I'm just down on this hump, the breeze is sort of the direction I'm looking is going over the top of my head, so I've got a bit of a barrier. But if I stood up and went onto the highest mound of part of this Iron Age fault, then I'd definitely get the wind chill factor even more. So hence that's why normally the breeze kicks over this direction. That's why I always sit in this little ledge. So anyway, just talking about the knife that I was sent. As you know, there's a few of us that have been involved with the preppers meet. Darren Funky Prepper, Art Cockroach, Mike. 2 events, preppers. It's called the Preppers Meet for bushcrafters, survivors, outdoors enthusiasts, wild campers, the whole lot. We had one in April and we had one about a month ago at Church Farm in Ardley. The one that was at the end of April, which was the first one that had been organised, I met a guy called Keith Viles who makes knives, and he makes them. He's got a channel called 0 Pence. Anyway, we sort of communicated a little bit through comments and personal messages via YouTube after the event in April, and I messaged him just to sort of say about my sister. She's not into outdoors and all that sort of thing, but she's interested in what I do and what I get up to and what have you. And she's got sort of arthritic type condition in her hands, so she finds it's very difficult, and she was really interested in the aspect that I'd featured in the video of the Preppers Meet of Keith Viles. He makes knives and he makes the contours of the handles particular shapes and ergonomically shaped so that people with disability in the hands or got problems with their fingers and what have you can use them much easier. And he sent me this, bless him. I got it a couple of months back now in a nice padded envelope. That was all wrapped around it with a bit of bubble wrap with a letter that he sent me saying about, you know, just sort of how to maintain it, best regards and what have you. Hope my sister finds it of use. And I've shown it to my sister, and she's well impressed with it, and obviously was well chuffed that Keith, who she doesn't even know and he doesn't even know, and I only met Keith for the first time in April, made this knife for her. And I can feel it. I mean, I haven't really got trouble with my hands, but I can feel the shape. It's sort of a nice feel, so it is actually conducive to the wrist joint. Anyway, my sister held it and she was well impressed with it, and as I say, is really, really chuffed. Still got a bit of tape over it to protect it. It's made out, I think, of a normal piece of cutlery, but he reshapes the metal, he makes all the handles himself. I mean, this is really nice, and I can really appreciate how he's made it, and for the use of my sister, which is going to be really, really practical. Just the right sort of size of blade. Obviously it's not sort of used for carving or anything, but just basic sort of knife duties around the kitchen and what have you. My sister said that this would be really good, and she sort of had a feel of it, said it was great. So I mean, that's been really simply made, but some of the knives he makes are really elaborate. That's really nice. And do you do make different sizes? Or is it particular styles that you make?
Well, this one, I made it because I made it for nothing.
Yeah, plate off a lawnmower.
That's a plate off a lawnmower.
Yeah.
And it's been this is a bit of sapele that come out of a skip.
Right.
These are some cocktail sticks that hold it together. There's 30 of them in there. Hold it together. Hell. And this inlay scaling is a chopstick.
Right.
Cut to the end.
All right.
Pins for it.
Wow.
Pegged up. This is a piece of a file.
Yeah.
and this is a piece of brass pinning.
Yeah.
Offset. That's it.
Brilliant.
A bit of lever at the end to stop it.
Great. And this is all his other stuff.
Wow. Some of his knives, yeah, exactly.
Some selection of knives this guy makes.
All kinds of different ones.
Oh, it's great. It's great seeing that sort of, you know, without sort of an event like this, we wouldn't have a chance to come across you guys and seeing something like this, you know, so original and different. Wow, yeah.
That's a nice drop on that.
Right.
Drop on it so that, because I've got a funny wrist.
Right, okay.
And I think other people have as well. It's their own. If you hold that and point it outwards.
Okay, yeah.
Get it?
Yeah, yeah, right, yeah. The joint of the wrist, it's more ergonomically shaped for the curve of it, right, if that makes sense, yeah. Oh, blinking hell. And what's that made out of?
That's a furrier's rasp.
Right.
Basically a nail file for an horse.
Yeah.
It's got a safety, that's it, feature.
Okay. Oh, right. And that's another rasp?
Yeah.
Take from right. And that's got a slightly smaller blade, but right.
It feels right.
Yeah. Index finger and then the other three and then the thumb either side on the top.
The thing to get right is the belly on the knife.
Okay.
And because if you get it wrong, you'll know. Because you grab it and you think, oh, no, that ain't right.
Right, okay.
Straight away, they'll bite you there.
Right.
But they've got to be sort of really...
Brill.
They just sort of caress the middle of your hand.
Yeah.
You know it's there, but it's not irritating you in any way.
Yeah, right. It's not as if there's an effort to hold it. But, you know, even if Keith does actually make them as a hobby and in his pastime, then you know, they're really made to a professional standard. And some of the collection of the knives were absolutely incredible. So really appreciate, you know, someone from the outdoors community considering somebody they've never met before, like my sister, and making them the knife and sending it to me to pass it on. So all good stuff in the outdoors community, and I'd like to say thanks to Keith. Right, back to some yumminess. I'm going to get that cup of tea down my throat, having a nibble on one of them biscuits. Okay, it's coming up to about 7 o'clock now, and the wind chill factor has really kicked in now. You can feel that icy cold. The sort of texture to it is icy cold rather than just the sort of gentle breeze creating the coolness itself. But I mean, I'm looking out eastbound and I can see all the towns and villages miles away, the lights. And also there's been sort of firework displays. Today's Sunday, but Wednesday during this week was the 5th of November. And in the UK it's known as Guy Fawkes Night, fireworks, what have you. But they've been going on all week, different festivals, different firework displays, and then people are still doing it over this weekend, being the Saturday and the Sunday, the 8th and the 9th. So of course it's still going on, and I'm looking over in the distance. You can't really see it, but you might be able to make out, I don't know, some lights in the distance. That, if you can see the two red lights, but actually it's about 3 or 4, it's a radio mast out in the distance. But I'll just see if I can see any more. Just keep seeing these sort of mushroom clouds of fireworks, which are obviously domestic because a lot of them seem to be quite low level. So that would be where people's houses would be. So anyway, I'm going to sign off now, get this rucksack on my back, and go way yonder over there in the darkness and the solitude on my jack. And I'll tell you what, the sky is really clear. I feel as if I could just reach up and touch the stars. It's that clear, it's really nice. So and I'm going to walk into the chill factor now. So I'm going to get on the trail and start to trek back and get the old body warmth risen a little bit by getting on the move. So as always, thanks for watching. Really appreciate your interest, and catch you in another video soon. Cheers, take care.